Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Exit Wound. I'm your host, Melanie Thompson. In our last episode, we talked a lot about the emotional vulnerability and fragility of survivors when they exit the life. Today, I am happy to welcome back guest Chantal La-Fon to talk about another arena that is so important for survivors when they exit, and that's our relationship with money. Chantal, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, as you know, we all need money.
Yes.
Everybody, right?
Oh.
Especially when you live in New York City. We can talk about those rent prices later on, right?
Oh my gosh.
But for survivors specifically, it is super, super difficult because you have added layers of the way that your relationship with money operates, right? We get into those nuances in a bit. So not only is money, when it comes to survivors, the means for how we physically survived when we were in the life, as you know, but it also becomes this signifier of our self-worth. And we often tend to have poor relationships with our money and how to manage it. We don't really have the skills when we first exit the life on how to deal with that. So in thinking about that, let's talk all things money right now.
Okay.
When we were prepping for this episode, we talked a little bit about the nuances when it comes to transitioning from fast cash to a 9-to-5 to living square, right? Do you remember the first time that you transitioned from fast money to steady money? What was that like for you? You cried?
I cried.
Okay, tell us about that.
It was a time I had a schedule. Even though the schedule in a life was different, you kind of do what you want. You had a midnights or you had a different schedule. You still had someone telling you what to do. The money thing, I worked a lot of overtime because now it's my money. It wasn't I'm making money for someone else. That was the difference. I cried because I missed the life and it was new. But I wanted to change, so I had to kind of really get it together and see what I'm going to do.
Right.
Of course, I didn't know how to manage my money fully, but I knew how to budget because when they take it from you, you budget it. How are we going to know to manage our money when we're not getting the money?
It's very true. It's funny you said that you cried. I'm laughing because I can absolutely relate. I think survivors everywhere can relate. I think we all, despite how messed up the conditions were when we were in the life and in the game, and despite the fact that we were making money and it was being taken away from us, there was still a part of us that was attached to the physical in and out of your hands that the cash was going, and it was very quick and repetitive. After we leave the life, when we first try to transition to do things the quote unquote right way, right, or when we try to get a job or things like that, it is difficult to switch from getting cash daily, hourly, even by the minute, to a bi-weekly paycheck or even once a month paycheck. And, it's not like the game teaches you how to budget.
The game don't even teach us in the regular world how to budget. So that's something that it goes either way.
Yeah.
But you're actually getting your money now. That was the only difference. So if it's anything else that will make you feel like, oh my God, yes, we know how to make the money, but we didn't get the chance to know how to keep our money, how to do what we have to do our money. That's the harder part. That's why I said it's like you learned how to budget because it's being taken from you.
Yeah.
So taking that part, you'd be like, all right, so I'll put this away and pretend. As I could keep going and I could see what's going on and stuff. Credit, all these stuff is something that everyone is still learning. That's the one thing no one should feel left out about because no one knows. No one is
Right.
We're not the only one. Survivor, no survivor, we're not. So many people, are not educated on that at all.
It's true. That's true. There's a lack of financial literacy in schools, in the public, in organizations. And for survivors, it's even twice that, because now not only do you have to try to teach us financial literacy, but you also have to teach us to undo what we know about money and the way that it comes.
Not everything.
Right.
Please, not everything. Because the way how we could perform and hustle, let's not take that away from us.
Oh, absolutely not.
and stuff. So
Absolutely
that's
not.
why it's so good to, yes, make that negative into a positive. As cliche as everything is, own it. Own it. Own it. It works. Own it. Because it's the same hustle. It's the same hustle. It doesn't matter if it's corporate. You're gonna see it, and you'll be able to size it up. We were given an opportunity to see the harshest part of it. That discernment is what we need when we're walking anywhere in this earthly realm, and that's how I see it.
I love that. So, given what you just said, what advice do you have for survivors listening that might be dealing with that change now? Like, they're in that state, they've exited the life, they're now trying to start a new job or a new small business or something. What advice do you have for them on how to deal with that fast cash to slow cash?
Don't rewire the mind. Use the skills and stuff that you used to survive and make that money from the past. Remember, we used to network, right? We had to network to make new money. Am I right? So you're going to network to try right now to see how many different ways you could get that money flowing in. It could be advocating. It could be, real estates. It could be an entrepreneur business somewhere else. Anything. That's money coming in.
I love it.
You're getting money coming in from different ways, right? You have to have your hospitality because it's your presentation. Everything counts. Everything counts. That's what you need. So don't lose it. You're just changing it around. That's it. You're just using everything. And we had to do it off the whim. Remember, we always had to get on that good foot. Keep doing it. We didn't have a time to breathe if this is happening. We still had to get out there and make that money. So get out. I don't care if you work at McDonald's. Find something else you could do at night if you're studying. Just stuff. Use that McDonald's to make sure you hustling to do a real estate. If you're doing home health, you taking care of your cousin or aunt or grandmother, use that to study for a test because that's money coming in. Look at that. You don't even got to go nowhere. That's easy money. You go to the house. You click it. Come on.
I love that. You know what I hear you talking about, Chantal? I hear you telling the people, we're going to educate the people today on transferable skills,
Yes,
right?
why
And this is
not?
something that I am so passionate about because a lot of people, and I'm going to digress for a second, a lot of people in society view individuals, survivors of sex trafficking, survivors of prostitution, they see us as if we're still dirty. We are uneducated.
Oh, yeah.
We have no skills. We have this is all we do, right? This is all we've done.
Well, we could size up somebody better than them, seeing them coming,
You know
shaping
what
them
I'm
up,
saying?
and keeping them moving because that's what we had to do to survive. Use it.
Absolutely. And the brain, the business mind.
We had it.
That we have developed. And it's not to say that we was out here thriving all the time.
No.
But the skills that you've learned on how to stay afloat outside in different weather conditions, the way that you would, I don't want to say like market, but the way that we would have to get the money.
Yes, it is marketing.
For it to meet your trafficker's quota.
Yes, it's networking, it's marketing. You have what you mean? You have to network to make that new money. Quota. If you don't make that 5, you coming back a lot. Like, come on.
That's real. Let's speak on it because the reality is that we were under so much pressure. Not even, and pressure's a light word for this, right? We were under so much threats, intimidation, death threats, things like that, right? All of this pressure to come up with a certain number of money, depending on what that was for you. It's different for everybody, right? And if we didn't come up with that number in a certain time frame, that could have been the distance between life and death for us, right? I think about it like a math problem, right? Your teacher says you got to figure out what is X plus Y to equal whatever in a 20-minute pop quiz, right? That was what we did on the streets. That's what we did in the lifestyle. You got to figure out how you're going to get to this number with a limited amount of people in a short amount of time.
A limited amount of funds, too.
And you know what? And that, to me, that level of skill is what transitions into a marketing specialist or a networking person or a mathematician or an accountant. Like, the skills are there. We have to hone in on them, So for folks who are newly exited, do you know of any resources in the community right now that help with budgeting or financial literacy? Or is there any one place that helped you learn these technical skills?
Well, first of all, I went through it a different way with my immigration aspect, right? So what I did was Sanctuary for Families. I was going up there and they were viewing my case. And as I did so, I met with different people. So there's so many different places. If you get up, it was hard to get up and beat those streets and stuff. And I did it. I had to deal with lawyers, my work. So mine was a different struggle but it's the same thing. I had to get up and go to these different organizations until they kept leading me to different people where I'll get information about a power up business and stuff. And they make me a business plan. It wasn't about winning the 10,000 or whatever, which I didn't win. I didn't win it and stuff. But it was more networking. It's a slow process, but it's more education. I went to Canva, did classes and got certified, finished, and they helped me put a business plan together. I have a business plan anywhere I go, and I'm always a member, so that way I could go back and do another business plan. You know how good it feels when they say, oh, do you have a business? And I said, oh yeah, I do. So it feels like it's preparation. So it's like what you want. We could Google anything. You can find out anything when you Google. It depends on what's your personal situation and what works for you. That's just how I see it. And then it's like you got to get up even when you don't want to get up.
I hear that. So for those that are listening that might be curious, if you're in the New York City area, there are definitely a lot of anti-trafficking organizations like Sanctuary for Families. If you're a survivor, that have economic empowerment programs for survivors.
They even have classes like for work and stuff like that.
Yeah, like job readiness, resume writing workshops, returning to those things. Those things are super important skills. And like technical skills that we need when we first exit. So definitely check those out.
And immigration services, because I know a lot of you out there are fighting that, 3 misdemeanors to a felony, deportation and all that stuff. There's a whole another side. There's a big world out there.
Yep. And you can't make money. We can't talk about the relationship to money if you can't even live sustainably. Especially in the U.S.
Come on.
So definitely look into these anti-trafficking orgs. Look into community centers. I know for small businesses, New York City has a bunch of online resources on their New York City small development websites or small business associations.
But I know, guys, that we need sometimes someone to guide us through it. And I know that we're building up that trust with everybody that's coming into our lives right now because of our past.
Yep.
So take time with yourself. But know that you have to get up no matter what's going on. You have to. It's hard. Even today. A perfect example. I'm late. And stuff, and I had to get up and thinking, I tried to be, and I almost had that rabbit hole, like, oh my God, and I was like, I kept it quiet. I said, I'm gonna get there safe. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna take my time. I was like, I'm gonna take my time, and I was like, I'm gonna think, and then the cause is coming, and I'm like, all right, this is my money, y'all, and I'm just taking it easy. But I'm thankful to God that while I'm coming here and while I'm getting those calls, those are the different forms of income that I have coming in. So it's not like if I'm telling you something that I'm not living, but I'm letting you know that it's not always easy. Let's just be the same ups and downs we had. It's just a lighter fall. We're not getting, choked up, yoked up, chased around, kidnapped and all that stuff. This time we have the chance to do it on our own terms and just take time, have that patience with yourself. It's worth it. It's not easy, but it's worth it.
It's so this actually is a great way to segue into my next question. And what's really interesting is that part of the relationship with money that we as survivors have that we don't talk about enough is how money is attached to our mental health and our self-worth, right? And I have an example, but I'm gonna hold on to that for a second. So, as survivors, understanding that our self-worth is not attached to a dollar amount can be extremely difficult. And when you've been purchased and sold and commodified for $100, $1,000, $500, whatever the dollar amount is, right? It starts to become part of your psyche. And now as you move forward in life, it is extremely difficult to not see yourself as, I'm just worth X amount of dollars. I'm just worth this amount. Does that resonate with you? Was that something that you've ever dealt with? And how did you deal with that? How did you overcome that?
That's when I was crying for the paycheck. That was that self-worth thing I was going through. But then it's so much more. It's like, is that self-worth is with your color of your skin. Self-worth is with your weight. Self-worth is where your back can come from. Self-worth is where you were, with a household. soul and all that stuff. It's so much levels of us building ourselves up and changing that self-worth image into self-love. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. So it's not one thing. It's like layers of things we went through. And that's the hard part. Yes, we could put it towards $1, right? That's a start. But then look at it, sometimes I put it towards my weight. I put it towards my shape. I put it towards all these things that we don't even know that makes us beautiful. And so it's like, darn, I have to change that self-worth into self-love. I have to rewire my mind and know somebody saw the potential in me. Even if it was a negative, I'm going to turn it to a positive. If you saw potential in me so hard that I could make this amount of money for you, I need to see it in myself.
That's important, actually. Taking that, whatever the dollar amount that was attached to you, kind of getting rid of the dollar amount, but switching your mind to focus on the self-worth part. Because if the amount was 100 or 1,000, regardless, that still means that it was worth something. So maybe switching your mindset, from what I'm hearing, right, to focus on, let's focus on the worth and not the number. If you just say, you know what, I don't care if it was for $2. Let me look at my attributes. Let's focus on my positive, what makes me me. I think that's a great piece of advice, actually. Because for me, one of the things I struggled with when I first exited for a long time was the first time I was ever actually sold, right? Like I have had my experiences where my trafficker would collect money from men who would do whatever they did to my young childlike body, right? And sometimes in those beginning days, especially, I didn't see the dollars. Like physically, I didn't even see the cash exchange. It was all done outside of wherever I was being held at, right? But the first time I witnessed my selling transaction, literally like from one pimp to another, here's the money, here's the cash, take her, that broke me.
Oh, wow.
Because in my brain, and mind you, I was trafficked when I was 12. By the time I was 16, I haven't seen my whole self-worth for those years was just seeing those dollars, that cash being exchanged, right? And it really messes with not only your self-confidence, but your psychological standing. You cannot physically, or rather you cannot mentally go on about your day.
And sometimes you can't physically either. Don't sell it.
Or physically. You cannot physically or mentally get up every morning, especially when you're trying to change your life around. You cannot physically or mentally get up every morning.
It's such a struggle.
Go to work, especially in the beginning stages. And a lot of us that do this work in the nonprofit sector, and we all know that the nonprofit sector is not necessarily where the money is at, right? We cannot physically and mentally get up every day, suffer with depression, have PTSD. We can do a whole episode on mental health illnesses, right?
Don't forget the toxic relationship, us being toxic to ourselves.
The toxicity, right? So let's say we got all these psychological issues. We cannot get up every day with all of that. Look in the mirror, come to work in a sector that's not that, that doesn't have a high payout. See our check, our first check for $800 a month or something, and not go back in our minds to that point. I could not go back in my mind. And then when I first started, I was young, so I was an intern, a paid intern in a lot of places, right? Making chump change, 200 every 2 weeks, something like that. I couldn't see that check and not automatically be brought back to the time I saw one man exchange cash in the hands of another man for me. It is, and I think that when we talk about specifically the relationship with money that survivors have versus people who are non-survivors, this is what makes it different from each other, right? Because we all struggle with money. All humans struggle with money. But when it's attached to who you are as a being, when it's attached to, and it's not just the physical exchange of money. No. It's also what the money represents. When it came to paid sexual access to me, this was a person that said, your body, your sex is only worth whatever the dollar amount, $50, $100, $150, $150, right? That exchange of money also said from pimp to pimp, she ain't all that. She only worth X amount of dollars, right? Now I don't mean now today, but I mean at that time, I'm at a job now or an internship where my paycheck is $200. So now what do I see? I'm only worth $200, right? that's the difference between people who struggle with money generally under capitalism and people who have been bought and purchased for a certain dollar amount that are now working under capitalism. It's like this double jeopardy that we have to deal with that nobody else would be able to fathom, no matter how hard they're struggling.
You hear the depression in there?
Oh, I'm hurting, girl. I'm hurting right now. You know why? Because it's so frustrating, because to this day, right, I still struggle financially. And I don't even mean just with me. I mean in general, with work, with my work paycheck, with my outside endeavors, with my large family, right? I struggle financially, but everybody does. Yes. And it's hard for me to think about how now I've joined the workforce. I'm doing the right thing. I'm away from the craziness. And I still have to add on this extra layer of struggle, because now I have to try to, like you said earlier, rewire my mind.
You have
right?
to educate yourself.
It's hard though, because where are the resources, right? Where
you gotta hustle.
And that's where transferable skills comes into play, right? Because there is now financial literacy courses and places we can go to learn certain things, but there's also this component of like, now not only do I have to fight poverty under capitalism, but now I also have to fight poverty with my mental state, right? My mind state. I also have to fight the flashbacks of the things I've been told about me and money and our relationship to each other. Now I have to also think that money is depressing, because I think about everything it's attached to, right? So I went on and on and on there, but it bothers me.
It should bother. That's why it's like, we're aware not to make money our God, because what we have been through. And so that's why it's like, but it's still hard. It's not one part.
Yep.
It's your mental health. It's getting up. It's your physical health. Because, you be honest. Some people's face has been disfigured. Some people, really.
Yeah. You're right.
And stuff. Some people have children, and I'm going to go back. Some people have children and they have no way. Thank God they have a child, because maybe they have a chance of getting some food stamps and stuff. I'm talking about immigrants. Maybe to get some assistance with some rent. And you have to really go out there and network and hustle with these different organizations and see what they have. You just have to get up and show up. Because half the things that I learned thus far, there's a lot more to learn. Half the things I've learned, if I didn't get up and go, I wouldn't have met you.
The mental determination and motivation that it takes for you to get up every day and choose to do this, to choose to still get the scraps, even when you're not out there on the street no more. Girl, I could preach, okay? So, okay. Before I transition to my next question, while we're in this space, I want to ask, how did you deal with the thoughts of wanting to relapse when money got tight? Do you think that it was your mindset switch that kept you not going back? Like, for example, I know for me and from a lot of survivors I speak to, that first initial feeling of when you see that first paycheck from a regular square job and you realize that you could be making a lot more if you just go back to the street.
Yeah, but there a lot more came with sexually transmitted disease. There a lot more came with the emotional abuse. There a lot more came with me probably being disfigured or dead or doing jail time or being deported. So that a lot more didn't mean nothing to me. There a lot more.
Yeah.
I wasn't really getting there a lot more. He's the one riding in the Benz.
Right. That's what that's why I knew you were gonna go there. I'm like, let me ask her, because
But now I'm riding my Maserati.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that. It's hard because I think this adds on to that layer of confusion, that area that we get into, because a lot of times we think, what's this $200? What's this one little Metro card? What's this one thing that's going to help me? And then you'd be like, there are some days I just really wish I could go back and just come out of this. So if your rent is really behind and you like, damn, I could do this one thing real quick and make it happen. But then you have that internal fight with yourself, because you realize
to this day
that one thing,
and I'm grateful to God,
comes with a lot of everything you just mentioned, comes with a lot of negatives and a lot of pain, physically, mentally, whatever.
I'm doing that work, but I'm serving the time and I'm not reaping the benefits. Just really process that.
That's powerful. Okay. Before I cry, girl. Before I cry. All right. So we know that coming out of the life, right? Like, it's really hard to know what's actually on the other side. We don't really know. It's not like somebody takes a handbook on money and says, if you do XYZ, this is how you get your funds, right? So if there was a guidebook just on a survivor's relationship with money, I know we have some workbooks out there, but if there was just a book that someone could hand you as soon as you exited and say, here's the way to get the funds, what would you put in that book? Would it be more towards the vocational training and stuff, or would it be something else? What are you thinking?
Let me see. What would I put in this book? That this book is, in all honesty, the first thing that I'll tell them, no one has the answers.
Interesting.
Because in either way, square or not, no one has the answer. We just confirmed that before. We wasn't teach about financial education. We wasn't teach anything like that. We just had to go with the flow. We taught to, get a good job, go to school, leave college with, owing 100,000 and stuff. Even now, you see everybody's rewiring their mind. No one wants to go to school. Then college, oh my God, I could do this, I could do that. I could open up a business, I could put it in a trust, I could flip and all that stuff. That's what's happening now. That's the first thing that needs to be in the book. You're not there anymore. Network, even if you see people as survivors as ourselves. Man, come on, take your time and get rid of that shame. That shame is going to hold you back. It's a process. Have patience. If there's anyone that you could talk to as you try to learn therapy, make that your go-to. You start off, because you're dealing with different people. You're going to deal with different people. You're going to be triggered on a constant basis, consistently. Even with being in or out of the life, it doesn't mean we have to deal with people. But I just pray you have that patience with yourself. It's that patience.
There's two things that you said that I think are really, really interesting here. You said, get rid of the shame. And you said, in the beginning, the first thing you would put is that you're not there anymore. Yeah. And I think when it comes to our relationship with money, this is also very important. What you just said can serve in both the emotional aspect of your attachment to the life, but it could also be with your money relationship, right? Because you could let go of the shame and the fear of needing to ask for help financially. The shame services, right? The guidance. So I really like that you said that. And then also you said you're not there anymore. And before we could even touch upon resources, financial literacy classes, any of those things, we have to remember we're not in the game no more, right? And that's something that I think is going to take your entire lifetime to really grasp, because we know about the hustle and bustle and it's in our nature, right? So it's hard to undo the game.
It is. You don't see how we hustle?
It's hard. It's hard to unlearn any habit, right? But especially when like you said, we were taught that money was our God. So how could we possibly defy our God, right? And they say money is the root of all evil. We hear this historically and XYZ. But for survivors, it really was. It really was. It was the root of evil, and it contributed to the evil, and it came from evil, right? So it's very difficult.
That's why you gotta have to make that money work for you.
And the switch of the mindset is so important.
That's why that mental health is the first thing that you have to remember when you get up and you're not there anymore, and you might have to go speak and start learning how to trust, and don't rush yourself. When you get that counseling, when you get that, take your time, because it's going to be hard. I'll go to that counselor and I'll be like, why am I here? I'm not telling you nothing. I don't trust you. You don't know nothing about me.
That's real. And that's the thing. Like, I want folks who are listening to understand that a survivor's relationship with money is beyond the average person's relationship with money. And what I mean by that is the average person, when their relationship with money can look like what they fantasize and glamorize. It could look like the general woes of capitalism and how much we dislike that, and how much, the average American, the average New Yorker is struggling, right? But for survivors, it's more than just the money complaints. We have the money complaints. We have the capitalism complaints. We also have the mental health that's attached to that. We have the flashbacks that's attached to that. We have the self-worth and equating it to a dollar amount that's attached to that. We have all of these different things. And it's really hard to learn how to manage money when, one, we're not taught, but two, we can't just take one class on budgeting and then we learn, because it's more than just the budgeting part.
Yes.
We have to, for survivors to really undo the negative relationship that they have with money, they would have to take a class on budgeting, mental health, self-care, yoga,
like,
you know what I'm saying?
It's
at one time. That's why we struggle. That's why the mindset switch is key to even begin to undo this toxic relationship we have with money. And that's why for many survivors, we fall and sink further into a crazy depression when we broke.
Yes.
That's the reality. Yes. Because now our God, right? Yes. Our money God, we broke. We in hell. We all the way at the bottom.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I really just want folks to understand a couple of things. One, if you're working with survivors directly, or if you serve survivors directly, or even if you're just an ally who wants to understand why compensating survivors, for example, is so important, why it's important to make sure that the survivor you're working with can live sustainably. If they want to understand the importance of economic empowerment programs, this is the reason why. Because for you, it's just a check or compensation, but for us, it's a livelihood.
Yes.
Right? And it's a holistic livelihood. Compensation for me speaking or telling my story or working in your office or working with survivors means more than just whatever the dollar is on the check, right? It also means me rewiring my brain. Yes, it also means me looking at myself in the mirror and not seeing just a pimp to pimp handoff cash transaction, right? I want folks to understand why money is so important for survivors to be able to become survivor leaders. And if this entire podcast is talking about that trajectory, how we started to how we ended up sitting in these two chairs today with these mics in our face, talking to each other, right? It starts with recognizing not only the barriers, but how important this part is. Because this is the difference, or this is what's standing in the way. Rather, this is the line between survivors becoming leaders and thrivers and all of that, or me going back onto the streets. Money is beyond just the cash.
It is.
So I want to ask you, Chantal, you know, we talked a little bit about transferable skills. You mentioned a few times in this episode about the hustle that's in us, right? Can you talk about some of your transferable skills? What are some things you've learned over the years that you had, and how have you put it to good use?
Okay, so since, like I said before, I was labor and sex trafficking, so that's multitasking, right?
I hear that.
So now as I started getting older and trying to get out of the life, honestly speaking, I'll be transparent. When I started taking the robbing my pimp, right, a trafficker, because I needed to get away. I needed to go. I need to find somewhere to go. I needed to do something and stuff. As much as he would try to kidnap, do all this stuff and everything else. So when I see that he still kept coming for me, I'm like, I'm worth something. I know I made you. Oh gosh, you on it. Like you're not letting me go. Yeah. And then I said, I'm going to have this job. I started doing overtime. I started seeing my money, started feeling good. My money. Only taxes coming out. It's my money, right? Then, if I even tell y'all how it's deep. It's deep. Even if I could explain how hard I had to work as an immigrant to get these jobs, and the things I had to do, and stuff. Nothing crazy like before,
right? But
I still had to take risk.
I want to ask you about that because you have a very unique perspective in that you have the survivor perspective. Well, you have the human perspective of dealing with money because we're all suffering under this world, right? You have the survivor perspective of how difficult, like I mentioned earlier, the relationship with money is. And then you have this added barrier of going through immigration in this country, in this state.
With a
right?
felony.
With a charge, right? How do you view money today? How were you able to navigate the lack of financial literacy that there is for folks who are not from here when it comes to money? And how were you able to turn that into your career today?
I started educating myself. piece by piece.
So you
Credit.
read books or went online?
I started piece by piece, learning how to utilize my credit, watching other people and stuff, and asking questions and everything like that. Everything, you have to have patience and do it.
Yeah.
That's how I started being able, knowing like, okay, I need this, because since it's something that I didn't have, when I got it, I'm going to cherish it. Because I know if I work hard for it, I can't get nobody. No one is going to mess it up. No one is going to mess it up. Because that's what I need. Credit is king. That's what I keep hearing. And you're seeing it as you go into the workforce and you're learning and you're meeting new people, different people, your conversation change.
Mm-hmm. You do.
The conversation change. So that hustle, that multitask hustle, knowing how to resolve problems. That's what we had to do, right? Because to resolve our problem, we had to make sure we got that money. So utilizing all these different skills of math, grams, ounces, this, that, knowing how to deal with different people, get the work done, get up regardless, perform our best. That made me elevate higher, showing up. We always had to perform, right? We always had to have that self-presentation. That's what I use in the corporate world. And especially as a Black woman, I came harder.
Oh, you have to.
Came hard.
You have to.
They know when I'm coming, I'm well put together. Even if I don't even got a dime in my pocket. But I'm going to make it now. Because that's what we did.
And you fake it till you make it. And that's a transferable skill that we don't talk about enough, especially as Black women or as Black people. Like this idea that we already have to deal with. Let's not even talk about the streets for a second. Let's just talk about in the corporate world. In the corporate world, in the workforce, in the regular 9 to 5, right? Like, we already have to deal with microaggressions, systemic racism. Your hair's not professional enough. Your locks ain't this. We got to deal with all of that, right? We speak in Ebonics. Our voices are a little deeper. You know, we don't speak like this all the time, like blah, 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 blah. All the things, right? Couple that with thinking about the labels that follow you from being in the life, right? You're a whore, you're a prostitute, you're this, all those things that are attached, right? Then you couple that with thinking back on how you were on the street cold in the weather. You were miserable, but you put a smile on your face every night to make sure your quota got made, right? Yes. Fake it till you make it. Yes. And that's a skill that you can now do in the workforce. You can now do in your classes. I sat in classes I was not happy with these past few semesters with teachers on this issue, on this subject, who didn't agree with me. And I had to fake it till I make it, right? So I could pass, so I could get my degree. That's a transferable skill. Yes. It's a transferable skill.
It's like you're creeping before you walk. Then you walk before you run. That's just how it goes. Like before, I will speak like this and say, yes, and I've done this, and this is what, and I'm accountable for that aspect. And all that. Bump that, because when you meeting us out there, that's not how they're going to sound.
At all.
So I stopped doing interviews like that. My look would not match. I'll come through like, and they'd be like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, I could do this for you too.
If you want.
But when you go out there and you're really meeting those new, they're not going to sound like that. They're going to be like, get the on my face, and I don't trust you.
Right.
And that's how it goes.
Right.
And so I'm going to do it the way that I know you're going to meet. I've come from that. That's what it is. Yeah. Ebonics or no Ebonics, that's what you're going to meet. And that has no color line. As ignorant as they are, they're going to come with the worst outfits, some with the best. I know I have my rainbow and my this and my that and stuff like, come on. The cheap shoes that hurt my foot. Yeah. Oh my God. And so it's like, I'm like, that's what you're going to see. So I'm not going to come here and speak all prim and proper all the time and use all these words all the time. And I don't got a dime in my pocket, and I'm going to front and think that you're going to meet a trafficking victim or a thing that's going to come and say, hey, and this is what it's not going to go down like that. I'm not going to sell you no dreams. So please don't sell me. I'm going to size you up fast.
And I love that you said without a dime in my pocket, because that is part of the motivation. And that's also part of the justification, in my opinion, as to why we're not so quick to jump into the workforce and, you know, abide by all these rules. And I think that's another part of the money game, right? Like the fast cash for a lot of us that were in the life is attached to a certain type of game, a certain type of attitude. When you transition into the square life and you're working in the organization or the workforce or whatever, you are expected to change your linguistics, change your Ebonics, change your hair, change your look, when you came from a game that found a way to make value financially out of what you came with. Let me hone in on that for a second, because I don't think they heard me. Okay, listen, right? When you are in the life, they find a way to make value out of you. They find a way to put a number on you. When you are in the workforce, right? They want you to tailor to match the value they got already. Whereas in the game, a trafficker, a pimp, whoever's gonna look at you and say, I could sell you for about XYZ. But if I'm in my job, my organization, McDonald's, the high school, the library, the movie theater, whatever, right? They're going to be like, in order for you to get this amount of dollars on your paycheck, you got to look like this. You got to sound like this. You got to do this. So it is difficult for a survivor to transition. I know I'm jumping back, but it just came to me. Yeah. You know, the spirit talking to me today. But, you know, like, you know, when you come back, right? Like, the game, it's hard for survivors to transition out, to go from fast cash to this, not just because the money's coming in minutes and in hours, but also because we don't have to make a bunch of changes to receive it, right? When you exit the life and you go into a job, you have to conform to corporate America. Why would I want to do that and struggle and bust my ass for 40 plus hours a week when I could go to the street and homie over there is going to say, you know what, I like your little natural twist. I'll pay you XYZ for it. Or, oh, I like them shoes you got on. Let me buy you some better ones. Or, hey, and I'm not going to get into all the body parts, because, you know, they all charge differently. But you see what I'm saying? It's difficult to go from using what you got on your skin that you wake up with to now having to go into a place where they already prejudging you, right? They already look at you like whatever's on your rap sheet, and you got to find a way to conform to them and not them conform to you. When I'm going to reemphasize again, the relationship with money and survivors is beyond the cash itself. It is. And if you truly want to support or help a survivor, you have to understand it's in its entirety. Yes. You have to understand money from a holistic perspective. Yes. This is beyond the cash. Yes, this is beyond the dollar amount. This is an entire lifestyle change, which is why the majority of survivors today, especially in high-priced rent New York City, oh my God, it is difficult for us to obtain financial freedom, financial security. It's a reason why we all are struggling for the same opportunities. There's a reason why we are struggling. We
go into different hustles.
You know what I'm saying? This is why we're all working and killing ourselves.
It could be credit card. It could be this. We go into different crimes. Come on.
We need the money we need it.
Because that's that fix. You want it. And then you know that you're getting it yourself. That's a different high.
Girl, that's an episode in and of itself. That addiction to when you finally do something. I told you, money is our God in the game, right? The life has taught us that we have to praise this thing. Our traffickers have taught us we have to praise this thing, right? If we got this thing, we could eat today. If we got this number, we won't get beaten today. I didn't even mean to rhyme there. But you know what I'm saying?
But it's true.
This was the difference between life and death for us. So the relationship we have with it is toxic. Yeah. It's toxic. We don't know how to have a healthy relationship with money. We have to physically come out of the life, focus on our own physical sustainability, and then decide I'm going to commit to unlearning all of these toxic traits.
And please be okay if you fall short. It's all right. It's all right. You know, don't beat yourself up. And we still do that to this day. I told y'all I did it almost an hour ago.
Oh, girl, I had to remember. Not gonna go nowhere. That's a lifelong journey. Beating yourself up.
So don't think that anyone has it or has anything over you. But I just want you to know you're not alone. That's the thing.
So to wrap up,
yes,
for everybody listening, not just the I want you to talk to the survivors, the allies, the lawmakers, whoever's listening. What's one thing you want to say to end this to close this out about the relationship between survivors of sex trafficking and prostitution and money?
It's the devil. I'm so sorry. It's the devil. And honestly, if I'm out here and I'm representing survivors, I'm not giving them any officers and stuff. I'm not giving them a false pretense of what they're going to meet. Because in order for us to save a life, we have to do this right. They have to be prepared fully for what they're walking into.
And what can people who are non-survivors do to support survivors in their money journeys?
Educate yourself with all the different traumas and the triggers. Be aware of it. Be prepared for it. Know to have patience, and then build that trust by just simply being there. Because that's something that we've never had. Someone that was genuinely there. Even with us, as we see somebody that's there, that's giving us that love, we still put that with sex to repay for the thank you. All these different things they need to know in order to truly be there for us.
I'm even going to add, remembering to compensate survivors fairly.
Yes, of course.
Remember to not try to lowball
survivors. That's the organization aspect, yeah.
Let's not lowball survivors because you think that all their expertise is only their stories. But at the same time, remembering that they are an expert because of their stories, right? Not taking advantage of survivors when you know that
lived experience experts.
I want folks to hone in and understand that survivors have a plethora of transferable skills that can be valuable in so many different sectors and departments.
And I'm sorry, but at the same, use those skills. And you keep in mind, I know we're going to probably do a little credit card scheme here, a little thing here. It's in there. It's in there. But as time goes on, use those skills to get multiple forms of income. Okay? That's where we get our thing back and seeing the money. But this time it's our money. Take your time as we network with each other and we build. We try to keep it within each other so we could educate each other. It's the same hustle. You know how it is. One sis gonna be jealous. One sis gonna be. It's the same hustle. Use your discernment and know that if you got McDonald's here, go get a real estate license here. If you're taking care of grandma here and doing that CPR, I know that's easy. You just check in, check out, do what works for you and take time, but learn everything out there as you can and know it's not gonna happen overnight. Cliche, but it's the truth. It's the truth. And we're still healing every day. I'm still healing every day. They used us. Now it's our time to love us, cherish ourselves, and go out there and make it happen. It's not easy. It's not easy. But now when I look at it, I see my son. I see my goals. I see everything. And I see the accomplishments I'm making and how I'm using whatever little money to flip. Even with credit, even with this, even with that. Since I go outside, I got my Maserati, I got a 150 truck, I got my son got his little dirt bike and all that stuff and everything.
Just remembering to all of the survivors out there, or to the folks that work with survivors, remind the survivors that you work with that it is okay to miss the cash.
It is.
But remember what
you are the cash.
What consequences come with going back? Remembering that steady money is better than painful money. Steady money is better than painful money. And remembering what that cash comes with, right? And reminding yourself, survivors, that you are not valued at whatever that dollar amount was. That your self-worth is not equated to whatever somebody paid for you.
And remember, you make the money. The money don't make you.
Say it again.
You make the money. The money don't make you.
And with that, Chantal, thank you so much for coming back to the show. No, of course, we could sit here for hours and talk about this, okay? But I really just wanted folks to understand that for us, it's deeper than money.
It is.
It's money, but it's deeper than money. For us, that mindset is something that a lot of people can't
You know how many times y'all had to get up, look good, take that bus, walk, do this, and go, woo!
Yeah, we could talk for hours on this, but thank you all for watching.
Thank you.
I hope y'all come back next week. So join us next week where I'm going to be talking with another guest about navigating the workplace, the 9-to-5 life as a survivor. Tune in then. See ya.